YouTube, Iran, go! We're going to kick into some Iranian news, and we're going to cover this. There's actually two updates to Iran. We're going to cover this. Canada joins nations demanding accountability from Iran for shooting down flight PS752. That happened. When did that happen? I think it happened 5 or even 10 years ago, something like that.
This is Democracy.
And then we're also going to we're going to get an update about the Iranian Revolution, if we want to call it that. I'm not sure what you would call it, protests, but they have passed 100 days, which is quite a, that's quite a task all in and of itself right there, to keep something going for over 100 days. I don't think even Occupy Wall Street lasted 100 days. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't think it did. As demonstrators facing crackdown request international solidarity. So we're gonna watch that video as well. So let's go ahead and get to this quicker one here. Maybe turn off the fucking music. Goddamn kids with their fucking music.
January 2020.
Jod, I think this is the plane. I think yeah.
Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 shot down by 2 Iranian missiles after taking off from Tehran. Everyone
Oh no, I'm incorrect. Sorry. That was a different incident.
on board killed. Among them Hamid
And look at this is like a security camera of, I guess, close to where the plane crashed. I mean, look how devastating.
752 shot down by 2 Iranian missiles after taking off from Tehran. Everyone
Horrific.
on board killed. Among them Hamid Esmailian's wife and daughter. Families have been fighting since for answers and accountability.
This is what we asked for 3 years. We need a roadmap. We need to know what's the next step.
Canada has formally begun the process to hold the Iranian regime legally responsible.
Terrible.
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly.
I mean, they're not even collecting bodies; they're collecting body parts. It's just atrocious. It's just so terrible. It's one of the most horrific things you could probably witness is a plane crash.
Writing on Twitter, those who lost loved ones.
Oh no, Jod, you got an air alert, buddy. Hit the fucking deck, man. Go to where you need to go. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, Jod. Go to your shelter.
Justice.
Canada, the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Ukraine have requested the Iranian regime enter into binding arbitration. They can do that through something called the 1971 Montreal Convention. It's an international agreement these countries have all signed on to, including Iran. It requires them to prevent attacks on airplanes and to investigate and prosecute those who carry them out.
So when we have a national tragedy like this,
Lawyers for the victims' families say the Iranian regime has held sham trials.
All sorts of information with respect to the flight on January 8th remains shrouded in mystery. I know that Canada and other countries are seeking that information, and Iran has simply not cooperated in providing that information.
Yeah.
Iran has 6 months to comply. Then the case can be taken to the International Court of Justice. It could require Iran to hand over documents and information.
God, look at
First
that.
of all, it's an international condemnation.
Jesus Christ.
Secondly, there could be demands for proper reparations
Those are
paid,
bodies.
to the countries that have brought the claim forward.
The families would ultimately like to see people serve prison sentences. Unlike the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice can't criminally prosecute individuals. But this is a step toward finding who is responsible for what happened to Flight PS 752. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
I gotta say, the Iranian government is not making a lot of the right friends. They're snuggling up close to Russia. Antagonizing the international community this way. It's the Iranian government is risking kind of opening the door for Israel to get in there. And would people actually stop Israel? Would they sanction Israel if that were to happen? So let's get an update from about these Iranian protests, because if Iran is to be saved from itself, it will be at the hands of these protesters, maybe that are wanting a better way, that see that there's a deficiency in their government, right? So let's take a look here from Amy Goodman over there in Democracy Now.
Now, democracynow.org.
This could be fixed in a minute. This could be fixed in a minute by restriction to any international plane to fly in Iran. I mean, there's a deeper problem here. There's a deeper sickness here. If people want to fight fair play, sawed off to a field and fight each other in the middle of nowhere where you can't hurt anyone else, those poor innocents. Well, memento, shit in one hand and wish in the other. See which one fills up first. The fact is, war is hell, and everyone's affected by it. I mean, a conflict in Ukraine, is having geopolitical effects all across the world, and a conflict in Taiwan, would seriously shut down the global economy. So, is that a bad Santa quote? I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in quite some time. It's a fun movie.
I'm Amy Goodman, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Nermeen Sheikh.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
As we begin today's show looking at the ongoing anti-government protests in Iran, which passed their 100th day this week. The protests have been met with widespread arrests, brutal police violence, and public executions.
Hold on to that feeling.
This week, Iranian authorities targeted the family of the Iranian soccer superstar, Ali Daei, who has for months been an outspoken critic of Iran's crackdown by, quote, forcing an Iranian airliner to land mid-flight so his wife and daughter could be removed from the plane and stopped from leaving Iran.
Wow.
The human rights activist news agency reports thousands of protesters have been arrested and more than 500 have been killed so far, including 69 children. This follows the recent public executions of two young men for their participation in protests. The Oslo-based organization, Iran Human Rights, has identified at least 100 detainees sentenced to death or charged with capital offenses. The protests began in September under the slogan, Woman, Life, Freedom, following the death of the 22-year-old Iranian Kurdish woman, Mahsa Amini, in the custody of Iran's so-called morality police after she was detained for what they called inappropriate attire. As calls grow for the United States and the international community to respond to Iran's brutal crackdown, President Biden's hinted attempts to restore the Iran nuclear deal may be dead. For more, we're joined by two guests. Hadi Layan is the executive director and founder of the Center for Human Rights in Iran, which recently issued a series of recommendations on how Congress can play a vital role in supporting the protesters in Iran. And Nahid Siamdoust is a former journalist who's reported across the Middle East, including in Iran, and is now Middle East and Media Studies professor at the University of Texas at Austin. We welcome you both back to Democracy Now! Thank you so much for joining us.
Takes a lot of guts.
Let's begin with...
I think you meant to say guts. Maybe not. Yeah. You know, they got pretty strong C words as well, too, I'll say. Boy, what a typo. Woo!
Professor Siamdoust in Austin. Can you talk about the significance of these protests and why, unlike previous
Just say you're Australian,
which were extremely serious across Iran, these have lasted so long, and if you expect them to continue and grow, Professor Siamdoust?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Amy. These protests have been ongoing because they're not a single issue protest. So they were caused by the death of Mahsa Amini, but they have been sort of brewing for many, many years and decades, and they're rooted both in a corrupt state, a state with impunity, who, as we know, with the protesters whom it has put on the death row, assigns them lawyers who in part will even speak against their own clients. And the impunity, the lack of justice.
I read an article about that.
The fact that the Islamic Republic has been imposing a kind of lifestyle on Iranians at large that people, especially the young ones who have been on the streets, completely reject. So these protests are ongoing because Iranians for several decades played along with this pretense of the Islamic Republic that the system could be reformed from within through various processes such as elections. And so there's now been a reckoning, a nationwide reckoning, that is no longer a possibility, that will not be happening. The most recent elections of Ebrahim Raisi, of course, were the most engineered, where Iranians showed up in the sort of lowest numbers ever in the post-revolutionary history. And so It's really a point at which many of these strands are coming together, and there's a
The
reckoning
revolution
that
might
this
be back
system is
on.
no longer a system that people at large want to maintain, and the deep cultural roots of it are visible in all the artistic productions that are going on and all the, creativity that's there in the slogans.
Nahid, could you comment, in fact, precisely on why it is that so many figures from the Iranian cultural world have been targeted, from film directors, award-winning film directors, actors, musicians? If you could explain what the significance of that is, and this phenomenon seems to be spreading.
Sure. Precisely because of the process that the Islamic Republic has pursued over the last few decades, which is shut down any kind of political, internal, organized opposition to it or alternatives to it, celebrities and filmmakers and musicians have, because of that crisis of representation, really become the spokespeople of the people. And so
the
they
artists,
are the ones who have the kind of...
This is often happens where the artists become the last source of truth, and of course the theocracy understands that threat, and that's why they'll go after music and dancing and expressions of that, because the music and dancing and those kind of things, they help you feel free, right? And that reminds you of freedom, and that taste of freedom reminds you that you're in chains, and it reminds you that you should be fighting back. Can inspire you. So it's a very dangerous tool against an authoritarian government. Wonder how many people they can imprison. Surely they haven't gotten infinite prisons. Did you see they were putting kids in riot gear? No, they're kids in riot gear. Are you serious? What the fuck?
Following on social media that allows them to speak for the people and to represent them. And that is precisely why also the state has been targeting them. Some of the most powerful videos that we've seen, or statements that we've seen recently, have come either from rappers Toumaj Salehi, who's also sitting on death row right now, and Mani Hariri, the filmmaker, who spoke out very strongly against the Minister of Culture, who asked filmmakers and musicians and artists to come out again into the fray and produce their work, to which Mani Hariri said, "I'm sorry, but we're too busy mourning the people you're killing to come out and dance for you."
Hadi Raimi, could you comment on the enduring protests? And your organization has been documenting human rights abuses. Could you explain what those abuses are, Hadi Raimi?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. The human rights violations are very widespread. They're happening all over the country. And if you just look at the numbers, they speak very loudly. We have had over 500 people killed, and that is a minimum. I really believe it's twice that, because I'm aware of many families who have been forced to not publicize the death of their children on the streets or family members. So over 500, possibly 1,000 people are dead on the streets. Nearly 20,000 people have been taken into prison, and at least over 10,000 of them remain as political prisoners.
And it's this is long overdue. I do need to remind everybody that the reason why there is a theocracy installed in Iran is directly the result of a military intervention by the CIA. Some bullshit, look it up. There's a whole history to it. But the fact is that before we meddled, before Henry Kissinger meddled, Iran was a young and growing democracy, and it was beautiful. And the United States destroyed that. Long overdue that I remind people about that. Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate have been arrested breaking. Do we know why they've been arrested? We're going to take just a quick little Iranian break to get an asshole update. We have an asshole update. We have an asshole update. Checking the news right now. Human trafficking, but what specifically? What? Alpha male. Alpha male. This. Alpha male. God, it could not have happened to a dirtier asshole. What? Oh yeah. Is this the woke? Is he being canceled? Is this what happens when you're canceled by the Jewish media? Is this the Jewish media canceling Taint? Asshole update. Asshole update. Got to get that asshole update. Hold on. Asshole update. Huge news. Huge news. Huge news. Asshole update. Incendiary social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother were busted in Romania Thursday related to sex trafficking allegations. Police ascended on Andrew Tate and brother Tristan were staying at Thursday. British brothers kidnapped. Okay, to detain the British brothers on kidnapping and rape charges. Ooh, this is legitimate, dude. Judicial sources told Romanian outlet Libertia the brothers had allegedly detained two young women. Wow, the brothers had allegedly detained two young women, one with American citizenship and one Romanian, inside the villa against their will. He was doing the Kanye sex thing. He was doing the fucking sex slave thing with an impressionable fucking young woman, where they were subjected to physical violence and mental coercion. Guys, alpha, guys, this is your alpha. This is your alpha right here. So alpha. Grooming young women, putting them in your sex dungeon, guys. Kanye, I don't know. Kanye doesn't seem to be doing this, does he? Kanye's perfectly happy with the groupie pussy that he's getting. Like, people like Andrew Tate are disgusting. You know, they want to break women down. They want to destroy them. They hate them. They hate women almost as much as they hate themselves. Right? That's his whole MO, is that I'm better than women and that we need to start disrespecting women more and women need to know their place and all that nonsense. Right? That's his whole bag. Police suspect the Tates of forming an organized crime group that's sexually exploited by group members by forcing them to perform pornographic demonstrations, pornographic for the purpose of producing and disseminating through social media platforms. Wow. And if any of these women were underage, that means he was making child porn. The brothers were questioned for 5 hours by police on April 11th, but were released. I guess that was last year. Videotape being escorted into a car and flanked by two officers was shared shortly after news broke. Tate's arrest could have been set off by his Twitter feud with environmental activists. Did Greta Thunberg do this, dude? Holy shit. Don't fuck with her, dude. Don't be fucking with Thunberg, man. The controversial influencer tagged her in a post showing off his 33 cars, asking for her address so he would continue to brag if they would contribute greatly to pollution. Yeah. Tate initially responded, "How dare you?" before revising his response to a 2-minute video of him making fun of the use of pronouns and calling her a slave to the Matrix. Tate asks a person off screen to hand him 2 boxes of pizzas, but reminds them not to recycle it in an effort to further taunt Thunberg. The boxes had Romanian type on the side, potentially leading officials know he was in the country. Really? They didn't know? What is this? God. Wow, dude, that happened. Life comes at you fast, man. Old Lenin. Man, fuck Lenin. Life comes at you fast, dude. Holy shit. They definitely did know. He has openly said it multiple times. I'm sure he was putting his location all over social media. This guy can't shut his fucking mouth. Well, there you go, folks. That's just your quick asshole update. Quick asshole update. Life comes at you fast, man. He was literally on top of the world fucking 10 hours ago. He was literally #1 top dog. Man, fuck Lenin. Give me Trotsky over Lenin any day. Give me Trotsky over Lenin any fucking day of the week. Fuck Lenin. All right, let's get back to our Iranian news. We've got our asshole update. Smells stinky, and looks like the turds in the toilet, folks. Turds in the toilet. Hey, there's fucking justice. There's fucking justice in the world, folks. There's justice, baby.
69 children, people under the age of 18 killed on the streets, and many more detained and taken to unknown locations. To basically sum it up, with the executions happening right now, we are seeing very widespread growth and serious violations, and most serious one also includes sexual assault. We're starting to get reports of rape of young girls and women in prisons, and sexual assault from the time they are picked up in the street
sexual
till
assault.
they're taken to
Theocracies
interrogations,
love doing
and during
that.
the interrogations, and even death in custody as a result of very severe sexual assault. So unfortunately, the situation in Iran in terms of human rights metrics is a complete disaster and is the worst I have ever
Yeah,
seen.
Lennon, stop wasting your time, man. You're not going to find any commie love here, okay? I'm a democratic socialist. That's the box you can put me in. I believe there are capitalist solutions to certain problems. I know, fucking shit yourself later. I just don't want to hear your commie fucking contrarianism if that's what you're going to be doing here, man. Just skedaddle on out of here. Go find yourself a hammer and sickle Twitch streamer. Fucking commies.
Seen it with my own eyes.
Ugh.
And Hadi Raimi, talk about women face, the sexual abuse. Nicholas Kristof wrote a piece in the New York Times recently. Iran uses rape to enforce women's modesty, quoting, talking about a 14-year-old girl. Explain what happened.
Indeed, it's a very heartbreaking story, and it came to us from very much underground, from people who were engaged and witness to every stage of it. This was a 14-year-old girl living in a neighborhood that ironically is populated by many people who work for the regime as security forces, actually for its special forces on the streets and the armed man on the street. Many of them we were
I want to do that to her one day,
and
John.
yet the high school, the girls' high school in that
Exactly,
neighborhood
Zio.
became a hub of protest and
disgusting.
activity in late September, early October, and Masume, the 14-year-old girl, had joined the protest in her school. The school cameras identified her. She was picked up, taken away for 3 days.
Frida
and
Kahlo is
when she
amazing.
came back after 3 days, she was completely mentally and physically destroyed. She had suffered
I don't agree with her
serious
completely,
sexual
but
assault, including
amazing
gang
artist.
rape and violence, and had serious injuries
14-year-old
to her body
girl?
as a result, and psychologically had completely lost it, and going around her apartment complex and telling everyone what had happened to her.
Wow.
Her mother decided to publicize this and was in the process of documenting it and bringing it out to the open. But given the neighborhood, a security force who lived in the building and was actually a friend of the mother became aware and alerted the authorities, who came again that night and took both the mother and daughter away. After a few days, the neighbors had to pull together all the resources to go and post bail, a very heavy bail for the mother. And the daughter's body was turned to them in a mental hospital, in a psychiatric hospital. She had died. They had taken there. We don't know what happened then, but her body was turned in. Again, our sources were involved in burying her. And then the mother was so
Terrible.
frightened, she took her other child and disappeared. So we're very confident this happened, and we're worried many more have happened. It's starting to seep out from inside prisons and other families. We're encouraging families to preserve the evidence, the medical evidence, especially till they're safe and secure to publicize it.
Professor Siam-Doust, if you could also comment on this phenomenon, the truth of which is only just coming out, the sexual violence against protesters, and also the way in which the protesters are taking on new methods. There's now a lot of videos circulating.
I guess I should set something up like that, huh? I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one, Zio.
with turban tossing, protesters going after clerics and tipping
These
over
videos are
their
great.
turbans before running away.
Take that.
Professor Sanders.
Yes, these protests have been fought on many fronts, and we have had, as Hadi Raimi just mentioned, these horrible reports of torture, of sexual abuse coming out from the prisons, and the tipping off the turbans, that one of the youths who had done that and who had been imprisoned for that and released from prison 3 days after his release committed suicide.
Wow.
So, we know based on both these reports, but also the number of people who, very young people who come out of, the person who committed suicide was 16. The young people who come out of prison and are no longer themselves or commit suicide, that clearly horrible things are happening once these, children and adults are arrested and
they just can't wait. They can't wait. They see a 14-year-old girl and they can't wait to fucking violate her. Oh yeah, that's whatever excuse they need to use, man. It's so gross. I tell you, in a theocracy, the most perverted rise to the top, right? The ones who are most excited to bend people to their will rise to the very top.
Taken in.
It's disgusting.
Axios has a new report on President Biden saying in newly surfaced video that the Iran nuclear deal is dead. Axios reports Biden made the remark in a short conversation with a woman who attended an election rally in Oceanside, California. The woman asked Biden to announce that the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, as the Iran deal is formally known, is dead. Biden responded he would not for a lot of reasons, but then added, "It's dead, but we're not going to announce it." You can listen closely.
President Biden, could you please announce that JCPOA is dead? Can you just announce that? No, why not? No, a lot of reasons. It is dead. We're not going to announce it.
Hadi
So
Raimi,
embarrassing.
if you
So embarrassing that we have to, this is how we get our journalism out of some of our American representatives. We have to ambush them at some stupid fucking corny ass, rodeo, right? Get them to answer a serious question that they refuse to make a statement on.
can talk about the significance of this happening now with the protests taking place. You are a former CUNY professor of physics as well.
Yes. Yes, so look, before this protest, the JCPOA negotiations were going nowhere. The Iranian government had missed a lot of opportunities to come back to the deal, and it was throwing a lot of obstacles in the path of it. Then these protests happened.
I kind of see it.
The situation is completely different. Let me tell you what I hear from inside Iran. The Iranian people, at least the ones I talk to,
I kind of see it.
And the analysts are saying that, look, we are a party to this deal too. Especially the economic benefits that would flow to the regime at this moment is absolutely not justified. And let alone the fact that there can be no trust that they will follow up with their nuclear commitments if they sign a new deal. So they're saying that, for example, the blocked money in the banks that could come back to the Iranian government is really belong to the Iranian people. It is the oil sales proceeds, and the Iranian people have no role in these negotiations, and their interests should be protected. So they are especially pointing out that it shouldn't, any economic benefit should only be tied not just to the nuclear activity, but to the crimes being committed. They want a moratorium on executions. They want a release of all political prisoners. They want the freedom to assemble as their constitution guarantees.
Sorry to hear that, John.
So the situation has changed
Please
a lot,
stay
but
safe.
the Iranian government sending a lot of signals that it is willing to come
Hit the
back
shelter
to negotiations
when they want you to.
because it obviously wants the economic benefits that will beef up its repressive machinery, which is under a lot of stress. But I hope President Biden really meant it, and especially Europe and US are not trying to strike a backroom deal of thinking this way they can put the nuclear issue in check. I think it would be a disaster to move forward with the old deal. We really need to construct a new package that represents the interests of Iranian people who are not at the table.
Hadi, can you explain what the punitive measures now in place, the sanctions against Iran, what effects those are having, whether they have been in any sense weakening the regime or the economy, and if so, in what ways?
Well, the new sanctions, not really. They're targeted against individual and institutions, mostly involved in human rights violations or carrying out the violence. None of these people really have assets or activity abroad that we can...
I mean, Jad, you're not wrong, but if we're going to see change in Iran, it's going to be at the hands of Iranians who, you know, want to change it. Unfortunately... unlike Ukraine, they're not going to receive a lot of support. I mean, maybe, though, maybe some of the, you know, U.S. intelligence agencies are covertly helping out this protest movement. But I don't know. Because it would actually benefit the U.S. government, ironically, for Iran to, you know, have a democratic revolution. Gosh, maybe you shouldn't have fucked it up, you know, in the 70s, I think is when they did, right?
I know that is substantial, but it is a minimum that should have been done. I think a lot more has to be done to send a strong message to Iran. The U.S. does not have diplomatic relations, so it's somewhat doesn't have many tools in its toolbox. But
do
Europe
a legitimate
does.
revolution.
We have been recommending should be pulling its
a hard task.
ambassadors
Not easy.
in tandem, in protest. And this doesn't mean, they argue that we need diplomatic representation and it's more important to have eyes on the ground. And
Welcome
I
back,
agree
Lenny.
with them.
Thank
We're
you.
not saying to sever all diplomatic relations, but the ambassadors are mostly doing a symbolic role
Zio.
inside Iran.
Yeah.
They're not needed, and it would be much more impactful. And then the Security Council has obligated itself since 2017 to have a session and attention to instances of sexual violence in conflict. This usually happens in February, March. So I believe the Security Council should take that up. And of course, Iran's work with Russia and the support it's getting from Russia and China makes it much more essential for international community to come up with solutions to address the crisis, which also involves Iran's destructive role in the Ukraine war. So I think the international community, especially U.S., Europe, Japan, like-minded countries, and Global South should be coming together and exerting much more diplomatic political isolation of the Iranian Iranian government, given the way it has behaved. And only then the Iranian people will feel like the international community is doing something substantial.
Let me put this question to Professor Siamjous. Do you feel the same way as Hadi Qaimi around the issue of the nuclear deal and also the significance of Israel's new government, the most far-right government in its history, now coming into power with Benjamin Netanyahu appointing his longtime political ally, Tzachi Hanegbi, as head of the National Security Council? He is known as the hawk on Iran.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I think Iranians at large and the activists on the ground, for sure, they are seeking the solidarity of the international community and especially its leaders. They are not looking for the international community and these, foreign governments to make new deals with the Islamic Republic. They are asking for them to really highlight the executions that are going on, the repression that is going on, and not to make deals with a state that is repressing and killing its own people. That has been the demand of the protesters. As far as Israel is concerned, and its new national security head, who recently commented.
God damn, man. Stay safe. Stay safe. Yeah, BRB. All right. Stay safe, man. Jad is literally living in Ukraine, literally dodging Russian missiles as we speak. Godspeed, Jad.
That its pilots should get ready because in 2 or 3 years' time they might be bombing Iran. Certainly, the geopolitical situation in the region is volatile, and not having a deal with Iran and Iran being able to develop its nuclear energy, of course, has always raised concerns about nuclear arms, even though Iran does state that it is not pursuing them. And so it's a volatile, situation that Western governments and other foreign governments are trying to balance. But that has to be, balanced against the kinds of demands that foreign governments will make of the state in Iran, and fundamental things have to change before any talk of that could proceed. And many protesters, and most protesters and activists would say that they are not looking for that. They are not looking for a deal with the Islamic Republic, because they are trying to unseat the Islamic Republic.
And Nahid, could you explain, just before we end, whether there are any governments in Europe or elsewhere that have been taking measures in solidarity with the protesters in Iran?
I mean, most recently, the foreign minister of Germany has said that they will not be entering nuclear negotiations with Iran. She has stated, the spokesperson for the minister has stated that Germany is on the side of the protesters, and their focus and their attention is toward the repression that is ongoing, and to the people's fight for freedom and justice, and that they are not interested in starting negotiations. So that was really circulated on social media. It was embraced by Iranian activists and Iranians at large, and that is kind of the approach that Iranians are looking for.
We want to thank you both for being with us, Nahid.
Well, there you go, folks. A little bit of an update about Iran. Amazing that the protests are still going. Like I said, if Iran really is going to change, it will be because Iranians want that change. Of course, there's a history of the United States meddling, and the fact of the matter is, I don't think they're interested in meddling one way or the other in this right now. Maybe if the protest movement solidifies and becomes more organized and becomes more legitimate, and really becomes a legitimate government, maybe we'll see the United States get involved. But right now, I think it's just, I don't think we can expect any help from Uncle Sam. But maybe we can also not expect any hindrance from Uncle Sam. Maybe Uncle Sam isn't going to get in the way of this one. I don't know. But power to the Iranian people who just want to be free from a theocracy. I don't know what they specifically want, if there is even, one single entity that wants one single thing right now. It might just be a scattering of, tens of thousands of people who are just crying out in frustration. But so I don't know what kind of government they want to replace it with right now. But I do know that being under the boot of a theocracy is probably one of the worst human experiences you can have. And especially if you're a woman in that theocracy. So I can only imagine just how terrible it truly is for certain kinds of freedom-loving people in Iran. So more power to them, and I hope to see them liberated soon. Thank you, YouTube. Click on that link in the description. Come on over to Twitch. We'd love to see you.